On a bright day at the train station, citizens bustled with their own tasks. Some were waiting for their train, while others simply needed to cross the train trail. The light turned green, signaling it was safe to cross, and a woman with her baby was the first to step forward. Just then, the train suddenly experienced a brake failure, making it impossible to stop. It sped forward, out of control, as passengers leaped off in terror, yelling for help. The train engineer's shouts were drowned by the noise, but it was clear to everyone. The train wasn't slowing down. Panic erupted. People ran from the train, shouting and screaming to warn those near the trail of the imminent danger. The woman, heart pounding, pulled her baby's stroller with all her strength, desperate for help. Yet all people could do was shout for her to run. Fear kept them from risking their lives in the chaos. Then, out of nowhere, a mysterious man in the crowd vanished, only to reappear on the train trail, standing right in the path of the speeding train. He stepped between the mother and the oncoming danger, blocking the train's force with his bare hands. The powerful impact caused the train cars to pile up, yet the man stood firm. The mother, clutching her baby tightly, felt a shockwave and a gust of wind blow past her, leaving her breathless and uncertain if it was their final moment. Peering cautiously around her, the woman couldn't believe it. She and her baby had somehow survived the terrifying accident. A figure stood before her, making sure she was unharmed. As gratitude filled her, the relief quickly turned to fear when she noticed his face. The mysterious man had a skull-like appearance, a sight that made her and her child step back in shock, thinking for a moment that death itself had come for them. Elsewhere, the mysterious man began his daily routine. His name? Zombie Z, Z for zombie. He had no memory of his real name, age, or even the day he died. Despite looking like death personified, he held on to a dream, to befriend humans. He wished that, one day, he wouldn't be feared or cast aside, but accepted. Driven by his dream, Zombie dedicated himself to becoming better. It might have seemed impossible given his appearance, but he believed that if he worked hard enough, he could earn a place among humans. Determined, he set out to help people, performing heroic acts whenever he could, like his feat on the train trail. Another time, when a plane was on course to crash into a packed soccer stadium, he caught it on his shoulders, preventing a disaster. Yet people were too distracted by his skeletal face to recognize his bravery. And when a condo fire broke out with children trapped inside, Zombie rescued them, only to be met with the same fear and confusion as at the stadium. Zombie's daily routine hadn't always been this way. Before becoming who he is now, a zombie outbreak had caused an apocalypse, contaminating the city and throwing society into chaos. Back then, Zombie had been an ordinary student, but the outbreak hit too fast for him to escape. He'd been bitten, transforming into a mindless undead, consumed with hunger for human flesh. Survivors hunted zombies mercilessly, using flamethrowers and missiles, while machines harvested zombies as fuel for eternal energy. Zombie didn't understand why zombies craved human flesh or why humans wanted to kill them. But he knew that to survive, he had to change. He began training every day, lifting weights, running, swimming, even jumping, and cut out meat, surviving on protein powder for all his meals. Exhausted but determined, he kept going, working even through the nights. Over time, Zombie became nearly unbeatable, both strong and resilient. With his newfound abilities, he returned to human society, helping whenever he could to reshape how they saw zombies. He wanted to live among them as a lawful, civilized, and kind zombie. Returning to his daily routine, Zombie opened his fridge, finding it empty. It was time for a grocery run. On a bright day at the supermarket, Zombie was stocking up on his groceries. At the checkout, a friendly, beautiful cashier struck up a conversation, casually asking if wearing a mask all day ever got uncomfortable for him. She clearly didn't realize who, or what, Zombie truly was. She then called over a few employees to help load Zombie's bags into his truck. As it turned out, he hadn't just bought a few dozen eggs. He'd practically cleared out the entire stock, as if he was running his own egg market. Zombie went about his shopping peacefully, enjoying the pleasant day, completely unaware of the two men spying on him from behind a nearby bush. The pair eyed him with intense curiosity, eager to uncover who was behind the mysterious mask. The stalkers kept a close watch on Zombie, even after he'd finished his tasks. Zombie frowned as he examined a piece of paper in his hands, a wanted poster. The person in the poster was someone familiar to him, Ao, listed as a boss-level zombie with an SS a danger rating. Ao's bounty was set at 9,999,226. Meanwhile, the stalkers couldn't shake the memory of Zombie lifting an entire plane at a soccer field, which had first drawn their attention. The cameraman, skeptical, wondered if they'd fallen for media exaggeration. His mustached partner agreed but kept his focus on Zombie, unable to look away, though he shared the cameraman's doubts, questioning whether the media had sensationalized the event. The two men decided to keep following Zombie, curiosity pushing them to see more, no matter the risk. Disturbed by their own conversation, the stalkers turned to watch Zombie, their eyes widening in shock as he displayed a jaw-dropping feat of strength. With a casual grip, Zombie lifted the entire truck, causing the ground beneath it to crack, and then launched into the sky with the vehicle in tow, reminiscent of a superhero. The two men stood frozen, staring into the blue sky, utterly bewildered, as Zombie soared higher and higher. He flew so far that he breached the atmosphere, even startling astronauts aboard a nearby space station, who looked on in amazement as Zombie floated past with the truck. In an abandoned, restricted area lay a hidden community of zombies, though not the typical mindless undead. These zombies could think, feel, and communicate in ways humans could understand. In the heart of this forsaken city, hunger plagued them, and a young zombie complained to his mother about his empty stomach. But all she could do was gently tell him to hold on a little longer. That night, under the cover of darkness, Zombie appeared in the skies above the abandoned city, carrying the fully loaded truck he bought from the supermarket. Zombie landed the truck with a powerful thud, drawing the attention of the city's zombie citizens, who murmured in awe, calling him the king of their kind. A young zombie, a bit nervous, remarked that His Majesty Zombie could have just driven the truck into the city, like humans do. Zombie simply replied, "I don't have a driver's license." The children listened in wide-eyed wonder, soaking up this strange new knowledge about the human world beyond their city. In a hidden, abandoned city far from human sight, Zombie had established a stronghold, leading the community of his kind. He instructed all the zombies there to replace their usual source of protein, human flesh, with the crates of eggs he had brought, shifting them toward a new way of survival. The zombie citizens began feasting on the eggs, a banquet that marked a strange yet welcome change. After ensuring everyone had enough, Zombie turned to a young zombie and asked for O's whereabouts. The child pointed to the city's main hotel, and without delay, Zombie made his way there, ready to meet another powerful figure. Inside, he found the community leaders gathered, each one possessing an aura of strength and mystique, clearly higher ranking and more intimidating than the others. They waited for O, the same wanted figure from the bounty poster that had caught Zombie's eye earlier. Among these leaders were Varmin and Blackie, both holding SS as danger ratings, just like O. Known as the zombie bosses, their presence was enough to unsettle anyone, yet they treated Zombie with the utmost respect, referring to him as Your Majesty. Despite being smaller in stature compared to them, Zombie commanded an air of authority among these formidable figures. Zombie moved past the gathered leaders, his gaze hardening with disappointment as he confronted O for his brutal attacks on humans. O lowered his head, apologizing and explaining that he loses control whenever he encounters a human, driven by an instinct as fierce as a predator hunting prey. Zombie took a seat on an old worn sofa, but his presence was regal, as if he were sitting on a throne. He hadn't come just to deliver supplies to his people, but also to receive updates from his subordinates. His commanding aura filled the room, and the gathered leaders waited attentively, ready to report their latest findings to their resolute king. Blackie stepped forward to report a pressing issue, explaining that although their numbers were steadily increasing, they constantly had to relocate their base to avoid human detection. Varmin interrupted, voicing his pent-up desire to confront humans directly, complaining that his chainsaw was rusting from a lack of fresh blood. Zombie fixed a hard stare on him, cautioning Varmin against being naive. Humans, he warned, could be far more dangerous than they seemed. As the zombie leaders continued their tense discussion, the rumbling sound of an aircraft caught their attention. It was an Air Force plane flying overhead, carrying a high-ranking woman, a leader in a powerful political organization. She was reviewing complex data and statistics, her serious gaze fixed ahead as the plane approached the abandoned city. As she reviewed the data on the display, her colleagues reported that all signals were clear and CLE was confirmed. The equipment was set and ready for use. She then requested the payload, which emerged from the loading bay, a massive armed nuclear warhead, programmed to detonate in exactly 20 minutes upon release, targeted at the abandoned city below. She nodded with satisfaction, the plan to bomb the forsaken place finally in motion. Yet beneath her calm exterior was a simmering rage. Her eyes narrowed with intense focus and unmistakable hatred for every last zombie, as if some deep, traumatic encounter had scarred her view of them forever. As the Air Force stood by, anticipating the nuclear warhead's detonation, the zombie leaders sensed the ominous presence above. Varant, impulsive and eager, proposed he go up and slice them to pieces, but Zombie, acting as their leader, held him back. He knew too well that Varant would lose control if he confronted the humans directly. Instead, Zombie commanded the other zombie leaders to evacuate. Resolute and unyielding, he assured them that he would face the humans alone, for the survival of their kind. It wasn't just the airborne strike targeting the citizens of the abandoned city. There was also a ground unit advancing, ready to fire on any zombie in sight. As the forces closed in on the city, Zombie took swift command, instructing his followers to evacuate and save as many civilians as possible within the narrow 20-minute window. His sense of urgency and precision hinted that he'd witnessed chaos like this before, and he knew exactly what was coming. This organization was clearly prepared for total annihilation. They hadn't just deployed a plane and ground unit, they'd also brought in a highly skilled warrior with one purpose: to eliminate every zombie in sight. This formidable fighter moved with ruthless confidence, ready to cut down anyone in his path. The expressions on the faces of the zombie citizens were far from fearless. These undead mutants, despite their decaying bodies and unnatural resilience, felt genuine terror at the humans' advance. Driven by a desperate desire to survive, they began to flee with all the speed they could muster, seeking any hope of escape. Meanwhile, inside the aircraft, a man who looked every bit the mad scientist was studying the data with an unsettling intensity. This scientist, who went by the name Faye, received a briefing from his colleague that the Elite Academy had already detected the zombies first. The Elite Academy had arrived with both Air Force support and ground units, making their presence known. Hearing this, Faye's face twisted into a disturbing grin as he eagerly pressed a large red button, revealing his horrific experiment, using live humans as bait for the zombies. The people trapped in cages nearby began screaming in terror, frantically pleading to be heard, insisting that they never signed up for this nightmare. The cages holding the humans were dropped, attracting a horde of zombies that immediately swarmed around them. As the terrified captives found themselves ambushed, the ground unit, known as Team T, received orders over the radio. Another team had detected signs of human life and instructed Team T to head to the marked location and rescue the trapped individuals. Positioning heavy machine guns at strategic points along the roads where the zombies might escape, the soldiers opened fire, unleashing a relentless barrage. But it quickly became clear, no matter how many rounds they pumped into the zombies, these creatures simply refused to die. A young zombie clung tightly to his sibling as chaos erupted around them. Just as bullets rained down, their leader, known only as Zombie and revered as His Majesty, stepped in, shielding the young ones with his own body. But one determined soldier was convinced there was no such thing as an unkillable zombie. Believing they simply hadn't used enough firepower, he unhesitatingly launched a rocket in Zombie's direction, intent on destroying him. The explosion shook the ground, startling his comrades. As the dust settled, one soldier spotted a document lying nearby, a detailed profile on a figure the public knew as extraordinary, a savior among the zombies who had been seen as an ally to humans. The image in the document showed a familiar figure wearing a mask, exactly like Zombie. Realizing the true identity of his target, the soldier with the rocket launcher froze, a sudden wave of horror washing over him. In his anger, he had fired on the wrong target, unwittingly attacking the very hero he was meant to protect. Amid the smoke and debris of the explosion, Zombie stood unfazed, still and resolute, determined to save every life he could. Back on the Air Force plane, the skilled fighter was alerted that a boss-level zombie had been detected in Zone B. Without hesitation, and with a fierce lack of fear, the fighter leaped from the aircraft, plunging through the air, ready to engage in battle. Back with the mad scientist Faye and his colleague, both working behind the scenes to support the army, the two scientists noticed something unexpected. The boss-level zombie had managed to rescue nearly all the civilians. As they examined the data coming in from the abandoned city, they began to realize they might have severely underestimated the zombies' intelligence and capability for independent thought. That's when Faye, with a chilling calmness, instructed his colleague to carry out an inhumane plan: drop a group of humans into the area in cages to use as bait. The zombie civilians swarmed around the caged humans, their hunger for human protein igniting after a long deprivation. It was as if something primal snapped within them the moment they sensed human presence. Among them, one zombie, desperate and starved, began to undergo a terrifying transformation, mutating into a massive, monstrous form. The guttural roar of this mutant zombie echoed through the desolate place, so loud it caught the attention of their leader, Zombie. This was, in fact, the boss-level zombie the army had detected in Zone B. As the skilled fighter dove fearlessly into Zone B, a separate team, still stunned after mistakenly firing on Zombie, who was known to humans as the Extraordinary, received the urgent update about the escalating situation there. They promptly responded, declaring they were on their way. Their squad leader, weighed down by the near-tragic mistake of almost killing the wrong target, felt compelled to act. In a panic, he rushed toward Zombie, assuming he'd gravely wounded him. Without hesitation, he lifted Zombie, determined to save his life. The squad members, skeptical and muttering about another reckless choice, reluctantly followed his lead, realizing there was no other option. The red-haired girl, still convinced Zombie wore a mask, grew increasingly curious about his true identity. She wondered aloud why he always kept it on, unaware that what she saw was actually his bare face. Zombie could only laugh nervously. Meanwhile, over in Zone B, a team of soldiers battled fiercely against the powerful boss zombie, scrambling to find a way to bring it down. Without warning, the creature mutated, gaining immense strength. Roaring like a bloodthirsty monster, it hoisted a city bus into the air, eyes set hungrily on the soldiers. With a mighty throw, the boss zombie hurled the bus. But before it could crash, Marshall, a skilled fighter and member of the Academy's swordsmanship club, appeared in the fray, slicing the bus cleanly in two. Cheers erupted from the soldiers, their confidence surging now that Marshall was on their side. Taking a stance, Marshall signaled the soldiers to evacuate the civilians immediately, his focus unwavering as he awaited the boss zombie's next move, fully prepared to end the fight. Meanwhile, the squad leader and his team were working tirelessly to help civilians evacuate. As they guided the terrified citizens to safety, they exchanged updates about the other team's situations. "Where's the boss zombie?" the squad leader asked, a hint of urgency in his voice. "Marshall's on it," one of the team members replied. "He's already engaged the boss zombie." Relief washed over them at the mention of Marshall's name. They knew all too well that he was not someone to be underestimated, and his involvement meant they had a fighting chance against the looming threat. Zombie found himself among the team, having been dragged there by the squad leader. He couldn't just stand by. The boss zombie everyone was talking about felt eerily familiar. It was someone he knew, a creature named Little Nine. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl was preoccupied with her duties, helping civilians escape. Suddenly, she sensed that Zombie had slipped away. Curiosity piqued, she wondered where he could have gone, feeling a mix of concern and intrigue about his mysterious departure. Back in Zone B, Marshall faced off against the menacing boss zombie, his gaze filled with empathy. As he stared into the creature's eyes, he saw a human soul trapped within that decaying form. "Are you in pain?" he asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. The fearsome boss zombie growled in response, launching itself at Marshall like a predator. Known for his extraordinary swordsmanship, Marshall unsheathed his katana and moved with such blinding speed that no human eye could follow his strikes. As he slashed at the zombie boss, he didn't just aim to kill, he sought to free it from the rotting prison of its body. For a brief moment, the boss zombie paused, caught in the grip of a transformation. Then, as Marshall's blade met its flesh, the creature began to crumble into pieces, the weight of its torment shattering at last under the precision of Marshall's skills. As the last remnants of the boss zombie fell away, Marshall took a moment to gather himself. Before departing, he bowed his head in respect, offering a solemn prayer that his opponent might finally find peace in the afterlife. As Marshall prepared to leave, he caught sight of another zombie. It was Zombie, mourning the loss of the companion Marshall had just defeated. Zombie stood still, eyes locked on the dismembered body of his fallen friend, a poignant image of grief amid the chaos. Back in the Air Force plane, news of Marshall's victory over the boss zombie reverberated through the cabin, igniting cheers of celebration among the crew. The atmosphere shifted, filled with a mix of relief and pride for their skilled warrior. In the midst of the excitement, the Air Force president ordered his team to document the event, ensuring that this monumental battle would be recorded as a significant contribution to their ongoing efforts in the kingdom. It was a testament to the relentless fight against the undead and a reminder of the courage displayed that day. Back in Zone B, Zombie mourned the loss of his friend, apologizing for the chaos, insisting that they couldn't control their actions and that it wasn't anyone's fault. However, Marshall, recognizing Zombie as one of the undead, reacted instinctively, swinging his sword with fierce determination and shouting that all zombies had to be exterminated. Meanwhile, aboard the Air Force plane, the atmosphere was electric as the team monitored Marshall's battle with Zombie. Confidence surged among them. They believed Marshall could eliminate this zombie boss in a heartbeat. But amidst the cheers, one girl studying the data felt a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. The readings indicated that the confrontation between Marshall and Zombie had come to an end, and dread washed over her as she realized the grim truth. It was Marshall who had fallen. Back in Zone B, Marshall hung helplessly from a pole, gravely injured from the overwhelming might of Zombie. Despite the chaos around him, Zombie appeared eerily calm, still grieving for his friend who had been brutally cut down by Marshall. Instead of delivering a final blow, Zombie made a surprising choice. He left Marshall in a critical state, choosing to spare him. Meanwhile, the Air Force team watched in horror as Marshall's life signs flickered on their monitors, indicating he was on the brink of death after suffering such severe wounds. Panic surged through the cabin as they realized the dire situation unfolding before them. Their confidence in Marshall's skills shattered in an instant. On the other side, anxiety gripped the team as they realized they hadn't evacuated all the citizens yet. The president of the Air Force felt a heavy weight pressing down on him, rendering him speechless about Marshall's fate. The situation was too much to bear, especially given his deep-seated prejudices against zombies. Suddenly, he made a bold decision, vanishing from the aircraft in an instant. Without hesitation, he leaped into action, determined to join the ground unit and confront Zombie himself. The urgency of the moment fueled his resolve as he prepared to face the terrifying threat head-on. The team aboard the aircraft quickly warned their president to gauge the zombies' power before making a direct move against this boss-level foe. But the president, already mid-air with his sword drawn, ignored their caution. As he descended, he bellowed the name of his powerful technique, White Blade Cleave. Zombie looked up in bewilderment as the president, shining like a falling star, closed in on him. But the moment the president's sword struck, it shattered into fragments against Zombie's body. Stunned, the president could only stare in awe, now realizing the true strength of the unbeatable Zombie before him. As the president engaged in a tense face-off with Zombie, his team urgently warned him against rushing in without proper backup, reminding him that his recklessness made it nearly impossible to provide effective support. Ignoring their protests, he held his ground, sizing up Zombie with newfound caution. He understood now this was no ordinary foe. One wrong move, one misjudgment, and he'd face the same fate as Marshall. Zombie looked down, apologizing softly for leaving Marshall in critical condition. He seemed genuinely distressed, fearing rejection from humans after working so hard to be accepted and loved in their society. Watching this, the president paused, his mind reeling with a new realization. This creature wasn't just any undead. He was a mutant or some kind of advanced variant. Gripping his backup sword, his heart hardened with hatred, and he prepared to strike again. With a fierce shout, the president called forth his move, the Enhanced Blade. But instead of attacking, Zombie tried to reason, wanting to clear up the misunderstanding first. Ignoring the plea, the president lunged, his powerful strike missing as Zombie deftly sidestepped. Undeterred, the president stepped back, gathering his strength for the next strike, his most formidable move yet, the Red Blade Cleave. As the president charged forward, his sheer power left a path of destruction. Columns and nearby structures split cleanly in two. Yet Zombie evaded effortlessly, ducking to dodge the president's fierce strikes. Frustration tightened in the president's chest. This opponent was not only skillful but nearly untouchable. With rising anger and determination, he desperately longed to finish Zombie with his own hands, but he was continually thwarted, unable to land a decisive blow. Meanwhile, the rescue team reached Marshall, who was barely clinging to life. In his weakened, delirious state, he mumbled incoherently as a soldier knelt beside him, offering reassuring words to keep his spirit steady. Back on the Air Force plane, tension grew as the crew anxiously monitored the situation, repeatedly urging the president to retreat. With the citizens safely evacuated, they stressed there was no need for him to stay any longer, yet he remained in the danger zone, locked in his own fight. In Zone B, both the Zombie and the president were on the move. The Zombie pressed forward with a sense of urgency, determined to save others before the organization could carry out its plan to bomb the city. On the other hand, the president's original mission to evacuate civilians had faded from his mind, overwhelmed by an intense hatred for the Zombie. This wasn't just about avenging his injured team member. It was a personal vendetta driven by a deeply rooted disdain. He wanted to destroy the Zombie, whatever the cost. The president demanded to know why the Zombie was fleeing the middle of the battle, the fight he was so desperate to win. but the zombie, clearly preoccupied with more pressing matters, casually dodged the president's attacks, flying and weaving through the air. Without missing a beat, he responded, "Why would I stop, knowing your only goal is to slice me in two?" The president intensified his power, activating Aido Level 2. This technique, inspired by Japanese swordsmanship, allowed him to draw, strike, and sheath his blade in a seamless flow. Enhanced by rocket-powered boots, he launched himself forward, closing in fast on Zombie. With calculated precision, he swung his sword, finally landing a powerful strike that sent Zombie crashing to the ground. A look of satisfaction crossed the president's face, convinced he had finally taken down his target.